Hello you guys. So today I'm making another psychic video, and your feedback was so positive to make psychic videos to help others find out if they have some psychic gifts, and also to help others develop their psychic gifts. So the first thing that that I've noticed, and we all seem to have this in common, but and that is, we all share this in common, is we have experiences that we can't really explain in words, in regular words, to our families and loved ones. We can't really explain it to them, but we have these experiences, and we somehow convince ourselves that we're not sure if we had that, like we're not sure if we saw that. I think I saw that, but I'm not really sure. Or, you know, I thought I felt that, but I'm not really sure. Or maybe I didn't feel that. Or no, that couldn't be. Maybe I didn't feel that. Or that is so common with psychics and or psychic mediums. And empaths too, of course. I mean, that seems to be one of the common threads, and so much so that I would say almost that if you find that you say that, then chances are you probably really are having experiences. The likelihood is high that you really are having experiences that you can't really explain. You know, because I did that a lot until, I mean a lot, like for years and years and years and years. and a lot of the things that I experienced, I started having experiences since I was little, maybe, or young, maybe like, I don't know, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, something like that. I would always tell my mom and dad, you know, so I understand. First, I'm going to try to explain the various abilities, I would say. So there are empaths, people who are empaths, we call them. There are people who are psychic, and there are people who are mediums. And so I'm going to try to break down for you the differences of those three. And I will say that sometimes a person has overlapping of the three things, you know, people are different. But for the most part, now I'm not going to list everything, but for the most part, if one is an empath, then one can feel the emotions of others, whether they're in the room or whether they're down the street or in the same mall as you or in the same restaurant or the same family member or whatever. So an empath can feel feelings of others, and this means feelings of intense anger, or feelings of intense love, or feelings of intense anxiety. Okay, and now an empath has an ability, that's an ability, a psychic ability. You're like that for a reason. You are supposed to feel everything. That's your gift. And you know, later in another video, I'll explain what I mean by, you know, use that as your gift. But for right now, just listing the different things. So being a psychic, well, being a psychic, now, and being an empath, I would say, is a psychic gift. I would say it falls under the category of clairsentience. Now, being psychic means that you have one or more of the following senses developed. Psychic sight, meaning clairvoyance. Psychic hearing, meaning clairaudience. Psychic feeling is clairsentience. Psychic knowing is claircognizance. And there's even tasting and smelling. And so those are all psychic senses. And some people have one or more of those things developed or turned on in themselves. These all fall under the category of psychic gifts. So being psychic, it doesn't mean that you have all of these things developed. It could, some do. But more often than not, when someone realizes they're psychic, they usually have one or two of these psychic senses more developed than the others. And as they go on developing their psychic senses, all of the senses begin to be more developed and turn on. So those fall under the psychic category. Now, reading other people's thoughts and remote viewing and that kind of thing, I would say also falls under the category of psychic. So if you have developed telepathy, meaning you can sort of read other people's thoughts, I believe that falls under the term of psychic, but it's not really a psychic sense per se. I mean, it's not like clairvoyance, seeing or hearing or touch, you know what I mean? It's thought. It's reading thought. So it's not really a sense per se, but it is. So it kind of falls as a separate category from all the other senses under the umbrella of psychic. So, and then a medium, my instructor told it to me this way, and this was very effective. She explained it this way. She said, a psychic can hear or see information from other people. You know, they can they can say, "Oh, I know where your keys are. I can see where you've lost your keys." They can perhaps read your mind. They can remote view things long distance. They can see things from long distance in their mind's eye. Versus a medium who can see dead people. So a psychic can gain information from her psychic senses from living people. A medium can get information and have communicated with via her psychic senses with beings that have passed on the other side. Not only dead people, but just people who aren't in a body, and beings on the other side in other dimensions. A medium can communicate. So those are the difference. A medium can be psychic and an empath, but an empath isn't necessarily a medium, and a psychic isn't necessarily a medium. But to be a medium, you have to be psychic and an empath. I mean, you have to be psychic in order to communicate with dead people, right? You have to have your clairvoyance turned on to communicate with dead people. Versus a psychic has her clairvoyance turned on, but other spirits or entities aren't coming to her to communicate to others. this person's seeing like pictures in her head of living people, or she's getting premonitions of bad things that happen, like she has dreams of things happening in the future that actually come true. These are psychic gifts, versus talking with entities that are not in a body. So they're two different, they're different. So that's the difference. An empath feels the feelings and feels the energy around him or her wherever they are. A psychic has one or more of their psychic senses open and receive information visually or other ways from other people. And a medium has all one or more of their psychic gifts open and receive information from spirits and other entities from other dimensions. So that's how that goes. Now, there are also other people that fall under the psychic umbrella, such as energy healers, people that work with energy, people who can see energy, people who can perform Reiki on others with their energy. So those are all what I would call spiritual gifts that I just described. And so now I'll just give you some examples of my experiences, or I'll just start from the beginning. So when I was very young, like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I would have what I would call psychic experiences, especially at night when I would go to sleep. I would have paralyzing sensations, and I would have to deal with negative entities trying to bully me around and stuff, and trying to scare me. I would have nightmares. I would get touched. My bed would shake. My legs would be touched all the time and pulled and yanked, and I would always be, my legs would be yanked, and I would always be woken up in the middle of the night, and such like that. Also, when I was very young, I astral projected, and I didn't know that's what was going on at the time. I thought it was just dreaming. I called them my flying dreams. And they were sort of different than my dreams. You know, I've always had a very, 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 very vivid dream life, dream world at night. But my flying dreams were sort of special amongst my dreams. They were different. And later, much later, like I'm talking maybe 35, 40 years later, I realized that they were astral traveling. And so those are the things that that I experienced when I was young. I didn't hear spirits. I didn't hear spirit voices talking to me, and I didn't see spirits like walking around, you know, with my eyes open. I did see them once in a while with my eyes closed. And so, and I grew up Catholic, and we were a very religious family, and so I said my prayers every night. And, you know, I said my set of prayers every night before I went to bed. And whenever these things, scary things would happen, where I would be paralyzed, or sometimes I would be choked, and I would just pray. I would pray, and then whenever I prayed, it would go away. And so that's kind of how things started for me. And then when I was a little bit older, but I was still young, I was still very young, like maybe, how old was I, 7 or 8, I guess? And then what happened one time was I was at the pool at the university, in the university's swimming pool, with my dad. And because me and my dad used to hang out, he used to be a university student, and I used to hang out with him at the university, especially on the weekends. He would go there and swim, and he'd study in the park, you know, and sit on the grass with books and a blanket and study, and I would go with them. And so anyway, and this particular time we had gone with my aunt, with my mother's sister. And she was young. She was younger. She was a teenager, and I was, like I say, like 6 years old or something. And then my dad, of course, was like, you know, I don't know, 28, 30 something. And so he was taking a shower, getting ready to get in the pool, and I was already in the pool with my aunt. And at that time, even though I was small, I knew how to swim in the deep end. My dad taught me when I was little how to dive and how to swim and how to swim in the deep end. So that's where I was. And so so the next thing I knew, I'm just swimming, minding my own business. My aunt is near me, like right next to me. And all of a sudden, these boys come out from out of nowhere and jump in the pool. From way off, they take a running start, and they're jumping in the pool, and they land on my head, and I go underneath the water. And they mistook my aunt for somebody else, and they were playing like a joke on her, and I guess they didn't see me, and so they literally just jumped on my head, the two boys, and I went under the water. And I remember just a lot of splashing around and just grabbing at clothes. I'm grabbing at people's clothes to try to get up out of the water. And I think I grabbed my aunt's hair. She had very, very long hair down to her knees. And I just couldn't, you know, I just couldn't get up out of the water. And so the next thing I knew, I was on the floor, on the side of the pool, I was out of the pool, on the side of the pool, on the ground, and people were all around me. And I remember I looked to the side, and water was coming out of my mouth. And I remember my dad was running. Like I could see him running down from the showers all the way down the side of the pool, like with his eyes all wide, running towards me. And the next thing I knew, I was throwing up, and water was coming out my nose, and I was sick. And it was awful, awful, awful. And I remember yelling, and my aunt was yelling at those boys, and my dad was yelling at the boys, and then they ran off, and it was people were running after them, and meanwhile, by some miracle, I was okay, and I still don't know what happened. I still don't know how I got from the pool, in the pool, under the water, to the side of the pool. I don't remember that whole span of time. And I remember that's when I had my first flying dream, or I thought it was a dream. And like I just thought about lifting up and getting off the ground, and so I just started to get up, and I started walking to get up off the ground, and I started floating off the ground. And I remember looking down and being really freaked out and scared. And I remember I kept going up, higher and higher. And I remember getting really, really scared because I couldn't control it. At first, when I was first lifting up out of my body and I was flying around, it felt really good. It felt good. I could fly, and I was floating, and I just felt like love, and it just felt really good. But then after a while, I started to get higher and higher away from you know, up in the air, and I started freaking out because I didn't know how to get back down, and I wanted to get back down. Then all of a sudden I found myself in this sort of, I don't know how to put it, like a room, I guess. It was like a room. It was more like a construct, I guess. It was like there were white mist all around, and there was a very loving, gentle, loving being with me. And I remember I couldn't see him, but he was right next to me, and I knew he was there, and I could feel him, and I knew it was a him, but I couldn't see him. But I remember he kept telling me, well, first we were talking, and I felt really good because he kind of took my hand and he let me sit next to him, and we were talking, and you know, he's really kind. And I remember there were like other people around, and they were looking up at him, and I remember they were like looking at me, and that I was sitting next to him talking, and they were smiling at me, and we were talking, and everything was literally perfect until until he said, "I'm sorry, but you have to go. You can't stay here. You have to go back down." And I was just like, I just stared. I didn't say anything. I just sort of looked at him, and, you know, I loved him, and I think I said, "I love you," or he said, "I love you, and I'll see you again." And then I remember my eyes opened, and I was back in my body, and I was so incredibly depressed. I was so depressed, and I started crying, and I was just so severely depressed because I had to come back. And I remember I felt like that for like 48 hours, and I was just a little kid. And I remember feeling that way, that intense depression for like 2 days, and crying because all I wanted to do was go back, and I was so sad that they made me come back. And so yeah, that was my first sort of flying experience, was when I went under the water in the pool. So that was my first experience. And I guess, you know, I think I've gone on long enough. I don't want to make this video too long, so I'll just leave it there for now, and until my next video. So that's it, and thanks so much for watching. I hope some of this was helpful. And if you enjoy this video, please give me a like down below, or comment if you want to share something, and subscribe to my channel, and that way you'll be notified when I upload the next video. So thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you soon on the next video. Bye bye.